Good afternoon. It is 1:24 on May 17th, 2012, and this meeting of the Executive Committee of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority Board is called to order. The first item, item 2, is the approval of the CRRMA Executive Committee meeting minutes of February 19th, 2010. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those minutes? Any changes, additions, deletions? If not, is there a motion to approve? Is there a second? All those in favor? All those opposed? The minutes are approved. Item 3, presentation and discussion regarding electronic toll collection processes and procedures. Mr. Tejas?
Whoa. Excuse me. Raymond Tejas, Executive Director. Today, what we have for you is a presentation that really breaks down the electronic toll collection process. As you know, we are working with TxDOT to develop the Cesar Chavez project. That project will be the first managed lanes project here in El Paso. So I thought that it was timely that we bring our general engineering consultant team to town to really break down almost a tolling 101 presentation so that we can have them walk us through that. So what we're doing here today is having that presentation, and that's really a precursor for the final item, which is item number 4, which we will be asking for comments and hopefully a recommendation from this committee to the full board for the adoption of the actual toll policies. And we'll get into any level of detail that you're interested in pursuing. But at this time, behind me, we've got 3 members of our general engineering consultant team. We've got Greg Blake, we've got Ron Fagan, and Samantha Souls. These 3 individuals are leading the task for developing the Cesar Chavez from the RMA side. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ron Fagan. He's going to lead us through the presentation. Please, this is as informal as you'd like. Please ask as many questions as you like. This is really for you. So with that, we'll turn it over to Ron.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, authority members. Ron Fagan. A little bit about myself. About 15 years in the electronic toll collection industry. 14 of those were on the agency side. I served about 6 or 7 years as the Deputy Director of Operations for the Orlando-Orange County Expressway Authority. And I served a little over 5 years as Director of Operations for the Central Texas Regional Mobility Authority, 2005 to 2010. During that time, I was employee number 4, and we went through the process of selecting a system integrator. We built the system on time, on budget. In 2008, we transitioned from cash collection to cashless. I think we were the first, at least in the state of Texas, to go completely cashless. And that has been a very successful program there. I have been a consultant since January of last year, working with Net RMA, Alamo RMA, of course, you all, Harris County Toll Road Authority in Houston, CRRMA, State Road Toll Authority in Atlanta, and soon to be, I guess, in Maryland, if I can believe the last call I got. But today is an opportunity to speak with you all about electronic toll collection. As you transition to an agency that actually will have an operating facility, thought it important that you understand the high-level basics of what actually goes into a toll collection system. The responsibilities are huge. Customer-facing issues need to be understood, mitigated along the way, and there are several areas where it's just important that you have an idea how the system works and what goes into it. So with that, may we have the presentation?
Ask and you shall receive, Ron.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good thing. What we'd like to talk about today, again, we've already talked about informing you, and you feel free to ask questions anywhere along the way. I don't want to fire hose you, but I do want you to have some idea what is coming. So we're going to talk about the electronic toll collection industry itself, a little bit about interoperability and what that means in the United States and in Texas. We'll talk about how an ETC system works in general, the system testing that is required to ensure that this rather complex system works the way it should and the way you require it to work. And we'll also cover, unfortunately, violation enforcement, going after the folks that choose not to pay. Okay? Again, ask any questions anywhere along the way. So Electronic or tolling in general in the United States is not new. It goes back to 1790 when they built the toll road between Philadelphia and Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Tolling in the United States really has existed for quite a while. What you see is the current picture today. Those states that are in white do not currently have toll facilities. They may have in the past, but they don't at this time. Several of them are discussing the possibility of implementing tolls because, like everyone else, they are struggling to find the funds to pay for infrastructure. The states that are in green have toll facilities, but they don't communicate with each other. They're not interoperable, as we say. They have various things from managed lanes to bridges to full-blown toll facilities, but they are entities in and to themselves. The ones in odd colors, so to speak, are actually states that have interoperability. Now let's talk about interoperability really quickly. What that means essentially is everything is, a customer can open an account with any agency that is in that agreement or with that group, and they can use their transponder or toll tag to pay the toll on any of those other facilities. Okay? So if we start out in the far west, California, in 1990, they passed what is called Title 21, and the state actually legislated that any toll facility would be interoperable, meaning if you come on and bring a toll facility on board, it has to work with every other toll facility in the state. Any customer can use any one of these toll facilities. If we move a little further to the east with Colorado, they actually have 2 toll facilities right around Denver. Their customers, no matter which agency they purchase their tag from, can use that tag to operate or use the facilities in Colorado. The big purple monster in the Northeast is called the Interagency Group, or the IAG. And it is several states, dozens of agencies. The program is called Easy Pass. So not all of those states have back offices and issue toll tags, but they all have facilities. So wherever you purchase or open your account in that group, you can go anywhere in any of those states and use the toll facility, reciprocity of operations, and reconciliation of funds all happens among that. In the state of Florida, they have 6 or 7 agencies. They operate independently, but they are all interoperable, meaning no matter where you purchase your toll tag, you can use all of the toll facilities in the state of Florida. And finally, we get to Texas. Texas has what is called Team Texas and the Interoperable Committee, and that is how they govern how they work together. So, counting you all, soon to be, there are 7 or will be 7 interoperable agencies in the state of Texas. It's important to note that only 3 of those agencies issue toll tags, operate customer service centers, maintain accounts. That would be Harris County in Houston, North Texas Tollway Authority in Dallas, and the Toll Operations Division of TxDOT. That'll become important as we move along.
Is the toll operations for TxDOT primarily around Austin, or where those are at?
They have them in primarily Austin. They had in Tyler. Tyler is now transitioning to the Northeast Texas RMA. It is still under TxDOT's control. And am I missing one? Anywhere the rest are for Sintra, working with TxDOT. Okay. Whoops, we did miss one. Okay.
All the RMAs represented.
Alamo RMA is still going through their environmental process. They're not on the slide. They are a few years away, I would guess, from bringing up a system. Okay. They would make number 8, though, yes. How do these agencies communicate? How does everybody know whose customers are good? How do you know what transactions transpired and what money you owe me? Several years ago, North Texas Tollway Authority paid for what we call the interoperable hub. Think of it as a gigantic transaction processor. The 3 agencies that have customer accounts, TxDOT, NTTA, and HECTRA, at least daily send into the hub every good transponder, every good license plate for their entire database into the hub. The hub shares that with every agency in the state, down to the very lane level. So if you think of it theoretically, not theoretically, literally every lane in the state of Texas knows every good transponder and every good license plate in the state of Texas. The full list is updated every 24 hours. Supposedly incremental lists go out every 2 hours or so that you know you have the most up-to-date information.
Help me to understand that. So,
Sure.
as transponders are going through the Northeast Texas or the Central Texas RMA, they're sending those transponders, and those are linked to plate numbers into a central hub, and then those are being shared among the four main RMAs that have the majority of the toll roads?
It's shared, yes. Essentially, that information gets, and we'll show it to you a couple of ways. The information from those customer service centers goes into the hub. The hub shares it with all agencies. All agencies push it down to all of their lanes, so that each day, any given period of time, each lane has theoretically the latest good list, if you will. Yes.
Now, every one of those vehicles has a transponder, correct?
You hope they're supposed to. And we'll talk about that. Not everybody mounts a transponder as they should, which is why a corresponding license plate
Is key.
is
Okay.
key. Because
So then you can link the license plate to the transponder and the billing account.
Correct.
All right.
You have it. Okay, so what you see, slightly different. CTRMA does not issue toll tags. It does not own customer accounts. It does not operate a customer service center. So everybody that it sees is a customer from someplace else. In their case, because they're right down the road from TxDOT, 92% of their transactions are text tag customers, but they also see a share from Dallas and from Houston. Cameron County came on board last year. They decided to go through CTRMA, use CTRMA as a conduit to get to the hub, to send transactions and receive good transponders and license plates from the hub. Yes, sir.
What is the advantage of going through them versus directly to the hub?
There are a couple of things. One is the cost of doing that. To connect to the hub, you would have to have some sort of host computer. We're estimating the cost for Oracle license for that is about $250,000 a year. Secondly, you have to pay the process to go through the testing to be a part of the hub, which is about $30,000 for initial startup. And finally, you end up having to be in TxDOT's warehouses where you would go.
So for a smaller user with a low volume of numbers, obviously that's a great first step until you build a system out.
Exactly. At least we think so until some process changes at this point. Should we stay on a little longer? All right, so also NetRMA has decided to go through the Central Texas Regional Mobility Authority to do this process as well. A key number in the bottom, the visited agency is charged 6 to 8% per transaction. Anytime a customer goes to a facility and it is not from that facility, in other words, if a Dallas customer comes here to use the toll facility and the charge is $1, you will send back to Dallas, we saw your customer, thank you very much, the toll is $1. Because they own the account and because the interoperable group agreed that the cost for maintaining those accounts should be covered somehow in the transactions, it is decided that Dallas will keep 8% of that transaction and send 92 cents back. For the agencies that have customer service centers, it's kind of a wash. They all see each other's customers about the same. For CTRMA, 100% of their customers come from someplace else, so they pay 6 to 8% 100% of the time on their transactions. What they believe, though, is that's far cheaper than the millions you would have to put into to bring up and operate a customer service center. Okay?
Now, the only reason you really need this is to capture tolls that are from outside the region that may be using your toll facilities?
Yes. Every state, well, every agency has agreed to be interoperable. So in order to get that, you have to have some means for that data to be sent to you. It was determined that the hub was the best way. They used to go peer-to-peer. Every agency had a direct connection with every other agency. So it was decided the spaghetti bowl that would turn into, as you added more and more facilities, was untenable. So they went to the hub, and that is the means to get that information down to all the authorities. It is also the way to get transactions back to the home agency that it belongs to so that you can get paid.
So part of the interoperability is we have to be part of this system for our toll facility. Is that correct?
Yes. Unless you want to stay out here, just you and just the people in El Paso.
Well, I was just
Nobody
thinking
else.
about how often we would see a Dallas vehicle or a San Antonio vehicle or a Houston vehicle, and you kind of run the numbers, and obviously a very high percentage of the vehicles going through would be West Texas vehicles that were part of our system.
But is this not the database that would also have us the ability to recognize even local license plates? And I mean,
Yes.
it's the database for all licenses in the state,
Right.
and so you'd have to have it anyway, or we'd have to create our own database.
Which would be a expensive proposition to go out with your own independent system that only deals with toll tags that you would issue. That gets to be a fairly expensive proposition.
Okay.
All right, electronic toll collection systems. I think the best statement I heard on this was once you enter the electronic toll collection industry, you are in the systems business. You are in the IT business. These are majorly complex computer programs, computer systems that do a great deal in a short period of time. So basic electronic tolling 101, the following things have to happen when a vehicle goes into a toll lane. The system has to detect it. It has to know it is there. Simultaneously, it needs to try and read a toll tag if it's there. And if one is there, is it good? Does it match the list that I have? If you are going to charge based on classification, how many axles does this thing have so that I know the proper toll to charge? I need to take a picture of the license plate in case I don't read a tag or the tag I read is bad. I need this image so that I can try and match it to a good account, or I can send a toll bill later down the road. In the lane controller really is the brains of the whole outfit. It coordinates all the efforts and knows what all the other parts and pieces are doing. It also ultimately communicates with the external host to start the process of sending these transactions where they need to go, or sending the images where they need to go, ultimately to the hub and on to the agency that owns that account. Now we're going to walk through a transaction high level, a few different ways, but I want you to understand what's going on. So if we look at, starting from the top, we consider the lane controller. More and more they're starting to call them lane zone controllers, but it is the brains of what is going on in that lane. If we're going to read a tag, we have to have a tag reader, and there's probably a toll tag in the car, we hope. One of the first things we said we have to do is detect the vehicle. In most lanes, you will see loops in the pavement. They serve multiple purposes, the first of which is to determine that a vehicle has actually entered the tolling zone. Loops typically are used to classify how many axles does this thing have as well. You can see shape-based, profile-based using lasers, but the majority to this point use loops to determine how many axles are on the vehicle. So that is going on at 55 miles an hour. Simultaneously, we need to trigger the cameras to take pictures of the front and rear license plates. The way many systems work, if the lane controller determines I read a tag, it's a good tag, valid account, dump the image, no need to hang on to that. More and more people are keeping the images because they want to do something further down the road. But the bottom line is, while all of this is going on, the cameras are being triggered typically by the loops to take a picture of front and rear license plates. Now the lane controller, at whatever set periods of time, needs to communicate with the host. These are all the transactions I saw. These are the images I have. These are the transponders or toll tags that I read, matched down to the millisecond, really. It sends all of that information to the host. The host is the maintainer of all of your key information for your data and revenue. If you are one of the 3 agencies that operates a customer service center, your host would send it to your customer service center for your accounts. If you don't operate a customer service center and you have one, but you still need to move other transactions forward, that is when they go to the hub, so that the hub can send them to the appropriate agency for posting to the account. Hopefully they turn around and pay you what you were owed, minus the 6 to 8%. Here's what it looks like, theoretically, in real time at about 55, 60 miles an hour. All of these things are happening at once. So, again, complex systems, a lot going into it. Detecting the vehicle, classifying the vehicle, reading a toll tag, taking pictures of images, and passing all of that information to the lane controller so that it can get it onto the appropriate folks to seek payment. Let's look at transactions and or the hub and interoperability in a slightly different way. If we start from the top left and we take the 3 agencies that have customer service centers, at some given period of time or certain set intervals, they send all of their good accounts and license plates to the interoperable hub. It sends it down to the host for each tolling agency. That agency then pushes all of that information down to the lane controller, which has it available for every single lane on their system. Transactions occur in the lane, and now we're going to come back up. It goes from your lane controller back to your host. Your host has to make some decisions now. Do I recognize this as part of a good list that belongs to an agency that should go back through the hub to that agency? And that is where it would send those. If it says, this doesn't fit any list I have, this is a brand new person, we just showed up and we took a picture of a license plate, now we need to send it a different location, process the license plate. Now, process the license plate means it's a picture. Something or somebody has got to turn that into data. 1, 2, 3, ABC. You can have a person view it on an image review station. More and more, they're going to software programs that are optical character recognition that try and do the heavy lift and take care of reading the majority of the tags. But either way, that picture has to turn into data. Okay? Yet one more way, I promise this will be the last one, to look at how a transaction actually occurs. So if we start at the left, the vehicle enters the lane and passes under the gantry. We've now detected it. The transaction starts. Did we read a tag? If we do, or do we read a tag, or do we have an image of a license plate that we can pass on to somebody that we know? After that process occurs, it goes to the hub. I'll point out one other thing. At the very bottom of the hub, you will see rental car. Long ago, they figured out rental cars were a large problem for tolling agencies. You take a picture of the license plate, send a violation notice. The person that drove the car is long gone. The rental car agency would ignore it, and the fees and fines just piled up, most times not paid. 3 companies came along several years ago and said, I will sign rental car companies to a contract. I will typically use their license plate. You take pictures of the contracts that I have or the rental cars that I have contracts with. I'll guarantee you the transaction, and I will get the money from the rental car company. So all of the larger, all the major rental car firms now fall within one of those 3 companies, and that information resides on the hub as well. So one of the things you'll be looking for with the license plate is, does it match one of the rental car firms that we can be paid for? Okay? If a payment is made or it is matched through the hub, it is sent on to the agency, and if the agency posts that to an account, that is the end of that transaction. Okay? It lives on forever, but it is done, it is paid, and revenue and reconciliation happens somewhere after that. If we drop down one step from the decision point, does the tag match? If the answer is no, now we are going to create a video bill. In Austin, they're called pay-by-mail. Different folks across the agency, different things. It is what it says. Take a picture of your license plate, go through vehicle title and registration, find out who the registered owner is, and send a bill in the mail, give them a certain period of time to pay. Okay? They send the bill. If the bill is paid, then that is the end of that transaction. However, the transaction lives on forever. If they do not pay the bill, now we have dropped down into violation enforcement. So you can see the easiest, most efficient way to collect is I match the tag. A little bit more expensive, but still efficient, is to match a license plate. If you have to start sending toll bills, it gets a little longer and a little more expensive. Thus, the surcharge usually for a video bill toll. There is the electronic toll collection rate, and almost every agency has a slightly higher rate to cover the cost to process the image-based toll. We're still good? Who puts these systems together? They're called system integrators. In the United States, there are probably 7 major groups. All but ACS on that list are currently or have done business in Texas. ETC is currently with Harris County Toll Road Authority and North Texas Tollway Authority in Dallas. Harris County is going through a procurement, so they may not be there at the end of that process. Federal Signal actually, along with VE Systems, operates the back office for TxDOT. They are the firm that runs the customer service center for TxDOT. Raytheon was one of the early firms that TxDOT selected to be the statewide system integrator, and they install the equipment in Tyler, Northeast Texas RMA. Telvent has every RMA out there, I believe. They are at CTRMA, that was their leg in, and then with Cameron County choosing to go through CTRMA as well as NetRMA, they are there. They're also out in Seattle. TransCore is huge, well-known, been around probably longer than, or at least as long as any of those. TransCore is now currently TxDOT's system integrator. They are negotiating the contract. It's not a done deal, but that is who they selected. And TRRMA is several locations, San Francisco, Bay Area Toll Authority, but they are also on your international bridges as well.
It's interesting that the majority of the RMAs are with Telvent, but Telvent doesn't have a violation processing system. So how do they process violations?
Oh, good question. CTRMA, a couple of things. CTRMA decided because TxDOT was right down the road, literally 10 miles away, there was no need to try and open a customer service center and compete with that. TxDOT was already well underway. CTRMA did choose to allow TxDOT to do their violation processing. And we did that for about 6 months and decided we needed to do something else. Just so happened about the same time, a collections firm approached us about taking care of our bad debt, which has happened in the industry before. But it occurred to us that the only thing they couldn't do that a typical toll road violation processing center could do was process the image. So we put together a procurement. We got our system integrated to build 5 image review stations so that they could look at the images and process those. And so we use MSB, a firm, CTRMA uses Municipal Services Bureau, which is a major collections firm. They are located in Austin, but they have clients all over the country. They process the images. They send the toll bill. If the toll bill is paid, they keep whatever their share is and send CTRMA the toll. If those bills aren't paid, they attach the $15 fine that goes along with that, send it back out, and we can talk about that more in violation processing. If that bill is paid, they take their share, they send CTRMA theirs, and on through the process. If they don't pay the second one, they put them in collections. There's a fee added to that, and if it ultimately goes to court, MSB puts together the court packet that CTRMA's representative takes these people to court with. It has been a wonderful solution, and the key for CTRMA really was there was no upfront cost. Really didn't have, it was deemed by our outside counsel that we didn't even have to do a procurement because we weren't spending any money. There was no capital from CTRMA. The only way this firm gets paid is if customers pay them. And quick side note, other collections at the time were either we will buy all of your violations and you let us go pursue these people. We'll pay you a certain amount on the dollar. We will go after these people ourselves. That scared us because we didn't know what kind of customer service that looked like. It sounded kind of scary, and we did not need customers calling saying a collection agency is after me because like El Paso, you already have some tolling, but Austin tolling was brand new and had a loud, small group that really would have looked for any opportunity to have something negative to say about it. So we didn't want to go through that one. The other was you could pay the agency, the collections firm, to work, if you will, the violations. You pay them an amount to take it, you pay them an amount monthly to keep at it, but they were getting paid either way. We didn't see that as a win situation for us. So we worked a contract that said you get paid when you get the customer to pay you. And that's how we ended up with that process. So MSB now is also taking care of Cameron County. They will soon be taking care of NetRMA shortly after the first of the year.
What does Cameron County currently have a tolled facility in place?
They do. They opened last year.
And how are they doing in regards to plates from Mexico that use their facilities? How are they doing in regards to any sort of collection?
There's a great question that was asked yesterday. I'm going to get back and see if I can get an answer, and we'll let you all know. But they were concerned about that going in. I haven't been involved in that process in quite a while, so I'm curious as well. We'll see what we can find out and let you all know.
Is there some current legislation that they're looking at putting in place to make the enforcement or collection of owed tolls more easier, such as perhaps attaching it to a vehicle license or registration? Is there something that you're currently looking at a state level to do?
Not to my knowledge. The last session did add the ability to do administrative court, so it could be a faster, more efficient process than this whole long, drawn-out thing to get misdemeanor and all of that, but did not get the ability to withhold registration or license or anything like that.
Super. Thank you.
Okay, so be sure. Okay. Now, system testing. How do we know these things work? And why do we care that it works well? Great line I like. At the lowest level, customers expect accuracy. We're going to talk about a couple of things in the industry. They're called customer-facing issues. If, for whatever reason, customers are misbilled, overbilled, double-billed, you will hear about it, and the media will hear about it, and that won't be a good thing. Your reputation hangs in the balance. You need accurate revenue collection. You need to know how much money you were supposed to get, what was expected, and you need to know how much made it into the bank so that you can compare the two. Particularly your situation, I believe that it has to prove to be profitable within 15 years. If your system's not working well and you're not collecting some of the funds you should, that's not a good thing. Again, brand new agency, new facility in a city that hasn't had roadway tolling before, quite honestly, your reputation is on the line. And it is true, it will take you years to build it up, but one or two bad missteps, and the community, your political supporters, the media, and if you ever go for public funding, the rating agencies are going to want to know how well you're doing and how your systems work. So, testing. Across the industry, called many different things, many different names. The three biggies up there are factory acceptance testing, prototype on-site testing, and operational testing. Factory acceptance testing is proving the functionality of the system based on the specifications you said you needed. Typically, it's done in a lab or in a test lane, but before we start sticking equipment in the ground or cutting any loops in the pavement, we need to know basic functionality that is required for this system to work, detect a vehicle, read a toll tag, classify. We need to know you have some idea how to do that. Prototype testing essentially works after you have put a lane out there. It is resting in its final place. Now you want to know from beginning to end, from the lane through the hub to reconciliation, this thing works the way it's supposed to. It can generate reports. It is accurate. You can reconcile with it. After you pass all of that, then you can go ahead and install the rest of it. But you're not going any further, especially if you have any critical errors, if you cannot get through prototype testing. The other biggie then is operational testing. You've installed it, it's up, you've cut the ribbon, had a wonderful day, and you are in live traffic. And this is before project acceptance. It needs to work at a minimum, 30 days, some people prefer 60, on its own, doing exactly what it's supposed to do without the integrator having to help it along, give it resuscitation or shock it. It just needs to work, and it needs to be sustainable. It needs to stay up, and reports need to be accurate and make sense. Once you get past that point, then you can start talking about project acceptance, and now you go into a maintenance phase. It would be nice if it were all honest world and you could take the integrator, the contractor's word for it that it works, but we typically recommend you don't go that route. So independent, competent folks will actually go through the testing with the integrator to be sure that what they say is working truly is working to the standard that it should. And the facts are the facts. There really is no wiggle room. These tests go down one scenario by another. It either passed or it didn't. It did it or it didn't. And if it didn't work, you need to fix it. It's pretty straightforward that way.
How similar is the technology in all the various toll roads? Is it just an evolution of current equipment, or is it all very different? In my business, I'm in the transport business, and the technology for tracking, tracing, RFID, every year there's a new wrinkle, there's a new enhancement. So what we're looking at putting in, is it going to be something brand new, or is it something that's already been bulletproof tested, at North Texas or at Cameron County?
Right. Great question. The industry changes fairly rapidly. People add new parts and pieces, new cameras, a new way to count, new different types of loops. What I think we've agreed on in this scenario is you want what has been proven somewhere already.
Absolutely.
In part, you have a short period of time to bring this up, so you don't need anybody experimenting on your dime. We want to see something that has worked and worked well per their client, not just the vendor, that would be recommended for installing here.
And obviously, we're looking for something with some sort of history of reliability that we can
Yes.
have certain assurances going forward that we're not going to have a number of operational, technical issues, from the get-go.
One of the other things you will have, too, once you go into the maintenance phase, it'll be a part of the contract that you put together. But meantime, between failure, system uptime, all of those areas are in there, and we would recommend some form of actual damages or liquidated damages if the contractor can't meet those on specific basis. But your earlier point is critical. Proven somewhere already to do it to the standard that you need to do it. This is not the time on this one for somebody to bring out some new bleeding edge technology for you.
And you all are going to assist us with determining what is the right equipment that we're looking at putting in, correct?
Plan. Yes, sir.
Got it.
Okay. Violation enforcement. People have tried to call it all sorts of nice things, but bottom line is every now and then people don't pay. All right. So why don't they pay? It could be a customer that actually has a good account. Their license plate is off by one letter and their toll tag is broken because they tried to move it from car to car. It could be, I have it, it's in my other car. It could be, I have it, but I never took it out of the envelope they sent it to me, all the way down to, I know I don't have a toll tag. I know I have no reason to be on this road if I'm not planning to pay the bill you are going to send me. There are folks that are just flat out determined not to pay. My tax is already paid for this, whatever the case may be. An acceptable rate, no known standard in the industry, but I think we agree somewhere, depending on the type of facility, 2 to 7% after all is said and done. 2% is extremely good. 7% is getting towards, if it gets much higher than that, you start looking a little out there.
What is the average? Is it between 2 and 7%? That's
You will never get an answer because no one ever calculates it the same way. You could ask, and people don't tend to share that kind of information. Quite honestly, in some places, it's pretty bad. At CRRMA, unless they do it differently now, it was number of transactions, what the toll should have been for those transactions. That is our expected revenue. Here's what we put in the bank for that same period of time. The difference is the violation rate.
Is there another way to do it?
Depending on who you ask, they will come up with all sort of magical ways to tell you how that works. To include an agency that said violations are not a part of expected revenue because we didn't expect them to pay. That makes absolutely no sense to me, but there is an agency that does.
They must be 100% then.
They're in their mind, they're doing very well. That's a true statement. So, again, back to customer-facing issues. This is one, you get it wrong. You've seen other people in the paper, heard about them in the media. This is where you have to be reasonable about this. The risk to you is the loss of revenue. That's very real, all the way back to, does the system work right, and can you cause people to pay that owe you? The rating agencies want to know. You're paying customers, the folks that show up every day and pay, and they go to the barbecue and hear about the neighbor who I'd never pay and nothing ever happens to me. That's not a good sign, okay? Nobody wants to be the chump. I'm the one that's paying. Why do I pay? That begins this process of maybe I shouldn't pay either, right? Back to community confidence. You are running this for this community to better transportation and mobility here. They have to believe you are enforcing the rules. So how does the violation work? Well, the first, everything except the last one is the same as for video billing. So you have to have an image. We talked about processing the image. That picture has to turn into some sort of data. We need to know who the owner is, and we need to mail them a bill. Need a set time to pay, and if you don't pay, you have to be willing to stand by your process that says we will now add some additional punishment to this because you didn't cooperate.
These are all basically set by us, by the board, and run through us. These are just examples, obviously, that you're showing here, but whatever these numbers are, we can set them up based on what we feel is adequate for this particular community.
Yes. Some leeway depending on if you tie directly into somebody else's back office. You may have to work within their rules, but the ultimate authority rests with you, yes.
This was very helpful because it cleared up a couple things in my mind, so thank you for this. But the one thing I want to understand, because I think I may have had a misconception, is we are getting ready to issue toll tags. A lady wants to buy a toll tag for their particular vehicle to use this managed lane. How does that process work, to buy the toll tag, to register it? Originally, I had the perception was coming through our agency, but it sounds like that's happening at a state level and registering at the state level to bring that tag in to register their car and put it on the managed lane. Is that correct?
Right now, that seems like the most viable.
Is that how that's done? Is that how, like, all the RMAs, as they set up a toll facility, a managed lane, when the customers are ready to begin and that managed lane is ready to begin being used, how do the end customers get those toll tags and get registered to use that system?
Right. Through TxDOT's TxDOT Customer Service Center, you can use the phone, send it in the mail, slow way, or go on the website and provide their appropriate information, put the initial deposit for the account, and they mail to you the transponder. We were kicking around some ideas earlier today. It's maybe finding a way to pre-position X number here, particularly during early promotional phases, so that they're readily available for folks to pick them up here. They still would have to probably have some sort of communication with TxDOT to fully register the tag and get their account set up, but at least getting the tag in their hand is half the battle. If we can get them then to go ahead and register and take care of the information, then yeah, that's the way to do it. I'm sorry, you were going to say?
No, so I think I've got it. So basically that the tag is registered at TxDOT in Austin. The transponder comes in. It's in their vehicle. The first time they used a managed lane, it's captured. It's sent up through one of these aggregators that's hooked up to the hub, and there's a 6 to 8% surcharge to manage that transaction, and then basically 92 to 94% of the toll of the managed lane revenue then comes into our particular account. Is that correct?
For those transactions, yes.
What is the typical timing on how quickly those funds are released and taken out of that account? Is that done on a 15-day, 30 basis? Is that done next day where those funds are transmitted?
No, the funds actually, I believe the business rules say every 30 days.
Okay. So the aggregator or whoever's managing it, basically the funds are, all the transactions happen, and a lump sum for that particular month is then deposited into the facility owner's account.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, I think I had one. Am I done? There was one more. This is the authority you had that gives you the authority to pursue violators. Transportation Code 370.177. You can see the numbers there. I will only point to the two words underlined, up to. The folks in the state that have gotten in trouble with violation enforcement in the past and made the news all had a ridiculously high fine per toll transaction.
We're not going to make that mistake here. Our fundamental philosophy is firm but fair. We realize the economics of this region, and so we are not going to make that mistake.
Great. Wonderful. With the toll bills, you can send, it's an amount for the bill, not per transaction. Folks ended up in the mail, in the news with $25 per transaction, 200 transactions you haven't paid. It looks like a ridiculously big number that Joe Sixpack is never going to pay, can't pay, and you're in the news for nothing good. More reasonable and programs that encourage them to pay is what we would recommend. You can only do yourself damage with really big numbers.
No, I agree. And your point earlier that the fact that you have no enforcement and basically the folks who are paying realize, hey, why am I paying when no one else is paying? So there has to be some reasonable level of enforcement. That'll be discussed at the board level, and we'll put something reasonable for the region in place. So that was very helpful.
That concludes the presentation, unless you have other questions.
David, Susan?
I have a quick question for you. I was getting a toll bill from the CTRMA once a month until my daughter moved out of Austin. And they were always between $6 and $12. How much would that have been had she had a text tag?
Well, at the time, you can add $1 surcharge for the toll bill, and they're changing these rules now, but $1 for the toll, 33% higher for the toll rate itself.
Okay.
So whatever that, $1 per month if you were getting one statement per month, and 33% less for the toll.
Got it. I was always curious. It's a moot point. She's gone, so.
An interesting point, I was just in Dallas. I had a rental car about 3 weeks ago, and I just got a note from Avis that I obviously went on a toll road that I wasn't aware of, and they were billing me for it. So obviously Avis must be one of part of the rental car agencies that are part of the program, and it works well.
Well, let's see. Did they say how much?
I saw it. It was a nominal amount. It was a couple dollars.
Okay, all right,
But
good. All right, yeah.
so it was billed to Avis. Avis had my credit card on file. They sent me a courtesy note that they billed me, but the
Okay.
toll operator or the operator of the road received the money for the rental car that was on
There you
that
go.
road.
Did it work the way it should have?
That did.
Else? Thank you.
Thank you. Raymond, we're going to have to teach you how to work those. Item 4, presentation, discussion, and action regarding the adoption of a proposed tolling policies and road use guidance document for the CRRMA. Raymond?
I'll use this one. Raymond Tejas again. So, as we've been discussing, the Cesar Chavez project will be coming online within the next year or so. So there are a number of steps that this particular RMA has to take in order to get prepared for the eventual opening of those managed lanes. So what you have before you here is item number 4 are the draft toll policies and road use guidance document. That really what I'm looking for today is to present you with these draft toll policies. I want to go through them very briefly, but before I do that, actually, I would like to call up Samantha Souls. She's with our GEC team as well, and she's going to talk a little bit about her history, what her specialty is, and then speak a little bit towards some of the documents that have to be put into place before we actually open a toll facility, the first of which is the toll policies and road use. So with that, Ms.
I'm Samantha Souls. I am with the GEC team, and just a little bit about my background. I've been in transportation for about 10 years now. 7 of that has been specific to tolls. I specialize in project management and program development and implementation, especially for greenfield projects where there either has never been tolls in the region or new types of tolling like all electronic tolling and video tolling. I've worked mainly in Texas. A few years ago, I was in Texas for about 5 years. And of the last 3, I've been working in California, Washington, and recently in Vancouver, British Columbia. So one of the things that I wanted to give as a backdrop for discussing toll policies is Ron actually ended his presentation with a statute. And so if you kind of think of things in the form of tiers, this top tier being state statute, the legislative authority to toll, and within what parameters. Policies are really the next level that set the framework and the parameters that the RMA can choose to deliver their objectives. So with the objective of regional mobility, being able to use toll facilities that are efficient, effective, handle your customer-facing issues, policies really give that context in which you're going to deliver that objective. The next tier down is really business rules. And business rules is how those objectives will be delivered. So they're much more on the operational level. And I explain this so that when you look at the policies, you can see the context of the bigger picture of what these need to do. So if you have an item that is more on the operational level, that's where you really want your operational flexibility to manage your business properly. So moving forward, you may have a policy that needs to be met, but how it's met may change based on anything from customer behavior to who is providing your back office operations. So it's really allowing the flexibility where it needs to be, but also making sure that it's in line with the authority that's been delegated down. Do you have any questions for me?
So are you saying we need to leave our toll policies fairly open-ended to allow us to adapt to our certain business rules or practices? Is that kind of what I'm hearing, Ms. Souls?
Yes, and not necessarily open-ended. It needs to be able to put the parameters around the actual authority, but yes, to allow for flexibility in the operational world, especially with a managed lane, and like I said, depending on who's processing your transactions. For example, with text tag being your transponders that are distributed, they're going to have business rules that really go with what text tag does. So to have those in a policies document could present conflicts and complications that are really unnecessary.
How many greenfield or brand new managed lane operations have you actually been involved with, kind of bringing up from the ground up?
Ground up with managed lanes, I was a peripheral expert on the UDOT project, supporting the project manager. That's a little bit of a different type of program than what you guys have. What you're doing that's very innovative and new is photo tolling a managed lane, which is different than most agencies. There are a lot of managed lanes coming forth in California. My other specialty is the all-electronic tolling piece and the photo tolling, so working in the Bay Area and on the Washington DOT's, both their all-electronic 520 project as well as their 167 managed lanes project. 167 does not have photo tolling. It's only transponder-based.
And the advantage of photo tolling, I'm assuming, is as that technology cost continues to get driven down, any sort of violation enforcement becomes much easier with, obviously, the photo tolling.
Photo tolling has a number of benefits. It's really shifting your operational impacts from the front roadway user piece to the back office side. The benefit is that you're not immediately making someone a violator as soon as they're on the roadway. So being able to establish a healthy customer relationship and giving someone the opportunity to be a good customer is really why the industry has trended that way. And you also don't have to make sure that everyone actually has a physical device in their car, which is very appealing to a number of agencies.
So with our particular technology, there's actually not a transponder required. A customer can register strictly with their plate and not have a transponder?
Currently, with the back office operations that we're looking at for Loop 375, pre-registered license plate accounts, the functionality is there, but they're not promoted as a preferred method of payment. So you would be promoting either the transponder device or a post-transaction payment that's in the form of a bill. Now, when I say the functionality is there, most photo toll systems, if you were to, say, overpay an invoice and have a balance on that account, you are a photo toll customer. You do have a customer relationship. And so you would have a license plate account that has funds on it, but as far as just strictly doing license plates, because of the back office impacts, it's not the preferred way.
So it cannot link to the text tag account that the transponder amount is automatically deducted from and then do the same with the license plate? That's not an option?
It is with a tag. And the cost of the collection through a transponder and using AVI equipment is the most efficient and cost-effective means. But there are a lot of what they refer to as exceptions in the transaction processing path, that if a transponder is, say, broken and you have a license plate, when Ron mentioned earlier that they're checking those lists against the hub, if the transponder has been ripped off a car or was not installed properly, then there is a way to associate that tag with a license plate and toll it. But if you do that with the transponder rate, you're absorbing the operational costs that it took for that license plate to be processed. That's the differential. That's why agencies have the differential between a transponder rate versus a license plate tolling rate.
I understand.
Does that help?
Any question for Ms. Souls?
Thank you
Souls,
for having
thank
me.
you. Raymond, as we've reviewed these toll policies, there's a number of red lines and strikeouts, and they're in kind of a rough draft form. As I understand, these are kind of more of a stylistic approach to begin with, and for us to begin developing these toll policies. Is that correct?
That's correct. And actually, why don't we start there? So again, as I mentioned, the toll policies, really what I'm looking for this committee to do is to go through these in any level of detail that you're interested in. And hopefully from this review will come an action out of this committee, hopefully for the recommendation to the full board that the full board adopt these policies. So the original document was provided to you on Monday, and that was the clean version. Since Monday, we've had our attorneys go through these policies, and they've made a number of red lines which are noted in the version that you have. And we can go and I'll go through this, not line by line, but I'll go through this so that we understand generally what the toll policies are trying to do by article. But the revisions that were presented by the attorneys are largely stylistic. So when you see, by way of example, they've changed the wording, for example, in the third line, pursuant to all applicable governing statutes. They removed that, and in its place they said the CRRMA has the statutory authority. So mainly stylistic. There is one item in here where a reference to a statute was incorrect, so they corrected that. But beyond that, again, mainly stylistic. So if you'll allow me, I'll go through a very brief overview of these policies by article. So Article 1 then really outlines the purpose of the toll policies document. And really what we've done there is we've incorporated the mission of the Camino Real RMA, the mission statement. It talks a little bit about what we are trying to do with these policies. Article 2 deals with how revisions to the toll policies will be made, which of course will be by formal action of the CRRMA Board of Directors. Article 3 deals with toll collection policies. 3.1 talks about how this will be essentially a cashless system, meaning it'll be all electronic toll collection, which consists of the transponders and, of course, the video toll collection process, which is the capturing of images, as our previous speakers have discussed. 3.2 talks about how this system will be interoperable with all other systems in the state of Texas.
David, did you have a question?
I'm sorry. I
No,
didn't mean
please.
to interrupt you.
No, please.
I did, but I'm jumping ahead. Is that okay?
Well, let's wait till Raymond gets to that
Yeah,
particular
that's
section.
fine. I'll wait.
I can move quicker if you
No,
like.
I'm fine.
3.3 then deals with the exemption from the payment of tolls. Now, really what we're looking for here is the identification of the particular types of vehicles that will be exempt. You note that emergency and military vehicles by statute are exempt. And then the next subpart deals with public transit vehicles. As you will likely recall, this RMA has guiding principles from the City of El Paso as a sponsoring agency, and through numerous discussions with the City of El Paso, they've always stressed the importance of having free transit use of any proposed toll roads, so we've included that here. 3.4 then, Article 3.4 deals with the specific toll rates and the fees related to the Cesar Chavez Managed Lanes project. So this is the very specific area where we break out what the Chavez toll fees are going to be. So when you see this, really what you're seeing is an outlining of what the market valuation process arrived at. So you will recall nothing in here is really new. The 10-cent base toll rate was developed through the market valuation process as approved by the Metropolitan Planning Organization through their subcommittee and eventually their Transportation Policy Board.
Raymond, are we going to, every time we add another toll road, we've got to come out and we're going to specifically put each one into this policy, build it in there?
Yes. Now what we'll actually do is exactly as we're doing here with Cesar Chavez. We won't get into the level of detail of time, how the specific time of day changes will occur, but we'll talk about base rates, we'll talk about trucks versus cars and other delineations.
And then the detail comes into where?
To the business rules.
I mean, this toll facility is looking at coming online in 2013. It mentions in here that the 10 cents per mile is in 2015 dollars. So does that affect what the potential toll rate would be at the end of 2013, beginning of 14?
Greg, can you help out with that? You want to come up here?
The $2015 that was set up with the market valuation terms and conditions, I assume your question is, do we have to
Have to
go
revise
backwards?
that, right? Do we have to, I mean, obviously, 2013 dollars are going to be a little less than
Different than
2015, so, or 2014, whenever the system's up.
Right, and Raymond, correct me if I'm wrong, but if We probably need to get a read from outside counsel on what the interpretation of
Or if,
2015 to 2013.
all right. And we also have the ability to vary the tolls based on time of day and other conditions that may occur. Some sort of variable toll rate, some sort of, that all can be managed through this particular document.
Not through this document. This document simply says that we will use time of day tolling. Then what we'll actually do is go out there and measure the actual usage of the road. And remember, the market valuation process requires us to hit a certain level of service. If we're not hitting that, then we have to adjust the time of day pricing to make sure that we get into that level of service. So, and I'll get you a specific answer on the $2015 question. So again, 3.4 deals with the toll rates and fees for the Chavez managed lanes, time of day, annual toll rate escalation, and the removal of tolls. Those three subparts all come directly from the market valuation agreement. 3.5 touches on the administrative fees for unpaid tolls, and essentially this is what Mr. Fagan was talking about. So if a toll is not paid within after the initial bill is sent out, an administrative fee of $15 is assessed. A second notice is provided. If still not paid, another $15 fee is attached, and eventually a final bill is sent. And you can see how that process works there. And this is in line with all of the other currently existing RMAs in Texas.
If we want to revise these fees for unpaid tolls, that's something that is done at the board level to this particular policy, correct?
Absolutely.
And this policy, basically, as we add on other segments of managed lanes, would fall under this particular, it would be the same for all.
That's correct. So prosecution of unpaid notices of non-payment, you see, is the process is outlined in 3.6, and we talked a little bit about that. Mr. Fagan touched on that section. 3.7, and incidentally, I should have mentioned this at the outset. These toll policies were developed by looking at all of the existing regional mobility authority toll policies, taking the best from each, and then tweaking it to make sure that it fit the El Paso region. This is one example. The 3.7 is a section that came from several of the other existing regional mobility authority toll policies, which I thought was a good idea, adding the ability to have toll incentives, discounts, and deferrals. And again, this simply speaks to the ability to have it. It doesn't outline how they will. Again, that will be...
Back to the prosecution for unpaid notices. Basically, it's giving us some leeway up to a certain number. We can determine whatever that number is, correct? We haven't set those numbers in stone with this particular document. Is that right?
I believe we are setting that here.
Court cost and a fine of up to $250. So it just...
Oh, right. Well, that's within the purview of the court.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that gets us through 3.7. Article 4 then deals specifically with the roadway operations policies of the Regional Mobility Authority. Statement of general purpose is listed there in 4.1, speed limits in 4.2, and these are really generally the processes utilized by TxDOT. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but generally we will be in charge of setting speed limits and that sort of thing within the zones that we are in charge of. Parking, 4.3 median strip, no U-turns, no pedestrians, and the prohibited modes of transportation. For example, no animal-drawn vehicles and that sort of thing are also listed in here as well. One item of note is under 4.7, bicycles or tricycles and those sorts of modes of transportation will not be allowed on any managed lanes. However, also due to the guiding principles provided by the City of El Paso, in those instances, say for example, if we develop the Northeast Parkway project where it's a true toll road, then we will consider how to incorporate bicycles into a facility like that. That gets us to 4.8, evasion of fare, state laws, penalties, and the rest round out Article 4. And lastly, Article 5 deals with acronyms and definitions. So very briefly, those are the proposed toll policies. So subject to your questions, yes, sir.
I don't remember when we talked in the past about our market valuation, but 3.43 says that in the event the gross toll revenues do not meet or exceed toll collection operation costs by the later of 2028, or the date, which is 15 years after the opening of the managed lanes to traffic, the managed lanes will then revert to a non-toll facility. Is that what we meant to say?
Yes, that was actually required by Representative Pickett in some legislation that he put in place. Is that
And I
correct?
remember that vaguely, but are we actually saying that if we fail, then we're just going to stop doing it, basically?
But not if we fail.
We don't succeed at what our projections are.
If we don't make a certain base amount,
Right.
if we don't collect a certain base amount within that time period,
Then we're just going to stop.
then we have to stop.
Okay.
In fact, that was a provision that
I
was included.
just wanted to clear that up because I couldn't remember.
Yeah, and it was, as the chairman noted, it was an explicit provision included at Representative Pickett's direction, I should say.
And it's reasonable. I anticipate that, obviously if it's just standalone and this is all we ever build, then that's fairly realistic. But as we look at potentially building the system out, using these dollars to enhance mobility for this region, then that really should be a non-issue.
And part of what is going to help us achieve that goal is us expediting the Americas managed lane segment, which will actually connect at the Americas interchange. You'll be able to hop onto a managed lane at that point and then flow directly into the Cesar Chavez segment and get you all the way to US 54, because essentially what that does is it provides you the alternative to the most congested portion of I-10, which is I-10 eastbound from US 54 heading all the way out east. So if you have a true alternative, which is what we're trying to provide here, then we should not have a problem with that prevailing, at least in theory. So again, subject to your questions then, what I'm looking for is a recommendation, or rather a motion to recommend that the full board at its next meeting next Wednesday adopt these toll policies. And if you so choose, if you make that motion and approve it, then what I'll do is I will accept all of these revisions. Unless you all have additional revisions, I'll accept all of those revisions and send the clean version out as the draft document for a review by the board.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Tejas.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that's all that we have for you for this committee meeting.
Thank you to our GEC team. We appreciate all your help, and we are excited about moving forward. So as I take a look here at the minutes, that looks like we're covered. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned at 2:01 on May 17th, 2012. 2:31, I'm sorry.